I believe that America can be Orthodox because right now you have two things happening in the West, particularly in America, but it's also happening in the UK. It's also happening throughout Western Europe. People are waking up to foreign influence. They're waking up to replacement of their people in their homeland. So those things are happening, right? A lot of people waking. We just saw this in Britain with Restore Britain just won all 10 of their elections. Yeah. So people are waking up to this, which we would consider this to be like nationalism. People are starting to become more nationalist in the West. Simultaneously, people are becoming more religious, particularly their religiosity is more frequent. So if you look at the studies that talk about this, and UOJ has done a lot of good work on this, the Gen Z population, although they are about the same amount of them are religious as prior generations, their frequency of church attendance is significantly higher than previous generations. That's what makes Gen Z unique. Mm-hmm. So basically you have two things happening here. You have religiosity rising, and you have political awareness and nationalism rising. And I don't believe that any paradigm really satisfies both of these the way that Orthodoxy does.
Guys, today my voice is gone, but the podcast is anything but dead. It's a lively podcast today with Ben Michael, the real Ben Michael, who is Ben Luigi online, was formerly like Ben Luigi, Orthodox Luigi. There's a lot of white nationalism talking. If you would argue that's not correct, I'm not going to edit it. It's a type of Orthodox nationalism or a Christian nationalism, and that's probably where the rubber meets the road. We try to figure that out. What is that? He defends, I parry, we throw some left to right hooks a little bit today on Heavy Things Lightly. We figure it out. Comment, link, do all that stuff, and thank you for supporting us. Like Conrad's beef jerky. This is the smoked natural. I enjoy eating that and giving it to our field workers. We gave it to Teo when he went to Colombia. And don't forget First Things promo code for 10% off. Bring us in, Greg Gilbertson, with your most excellent music. Go, Marjos. All right, so, gosh, it's good to have you. As you may have noticed, I am not the same age as you. And so every now and then I realize I've interviewed a series of old-ass people, and you're not old. And a parishioner, we share the same parish more or less. If I'm on the road a lot. So are you. A parishioner, I want you to know.
Yes.
A very nice parishioner, also I would say an older woman who's very attractive said, "Are you going to interview Johnny Depp tomorrow?" And I said, "Yes." So you are officially like Johnny Depp of our parish. I don't know if that's good or bad.
I was just going to say that. I don't know which one it is. I guess it means I have a wide range of acting skills. I don't know. I mean, that's
you have an acting skills. Maybe you come across as pleasant to look at. That's Johnny Depp's. For us people who are old, that's Johnny Depp's sort of like the Brad Pitt. Well, also he's old. So wait a minute. Who's the young person who's easy on the eyes? I don't want to sound like gay or anything, but
they're trying to prop up this Timothy Chalamet or whatever his name is, the kid from Dune. That's who they're trying to prop up. Yeah.
Do you know how I know that guy? As a Knicks fan.
Yes.
So he's good to me. My whole life is either you're good or bad. And that's how I live my life. He seems good until I know of other things, then he'll be bad. I'm kidding. I think I can go deeper than that. It's nice to have you, Ben Michael.
Yes, happy to be here, John. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Obviously, I'm pretty close with your brother, Father Peter, and he was the one who sort of originally recommended me to the parish that I now go to, and it was because of your experience and being positive there. And so it's been such a blessing being there so far, and I'm excited to get to know you and really your family better. I'm already pretty close with your brother and nephew, but I'm just excited to get to know you better, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
This is so nice. That's a good way to frame it up. Yeah. Because I know that they were helpful as you try to figure out what to do, not just with your spiritual life, but also with your media life. Can we call it a media life? Something
like that, yeah.
Well, let's start with that. Well, let's go back further. So you come out of your mom's womb somewhere, and then life opens up to you. What kind of early life did you lead?
Yeah, so I was raised in a non-denominational Protestant church. So my father is a pastor in a non-denominational church. So I was raised, within the Christian faith, in, like I said, kind of a low church Protestant background. And I was like all the cliches. I was like a teen band, like worship leader, and all that kind of stuff.
Did you wear like wristbands?
Wristbands?
I never wore the wristband. Sweat wristbands, I did. You guys were singing so hard for Jesus.
No, I didn't do that, but I will say I did have the cliche, slick back haircut, the shaved sides and the hipster, pastor's kid haircut. Or youth pastor haircut. So and then I sort of fell away from the faith when I was in high school. I was very nominal. And then ironically, it was actually a trip to Israel, a Christian trip to Israel, not a dispensationalist one. But it was actually just
it was not on the Zionist tour
as far as I know.
Love.
As far as I know, I mean, as far as I know, we went to Christian sites, right? That was the main thing we were doing. So
fair point. Who knows?
Yeah. So and it was it was Protestant, so it was like the Garden Tomb. We did go to the Sepulchre. It's actually sad because I look back on it now. I didn't appreciate the Holy Sepulchre for what it was when I was there because I was Protestant. And the Protestants, a lot of people don't know this, the Protestants reject that is the holy site of the death, burial, and resurrection, when in fact it is the holy site of that. But they have what's called the Garden Tomb, and that I had a moment there at the Garden Tomb that really I woke up to the reality of the faith that I was walking, or at least I was claiming to walk. And so I kind of, redevoted my life. It was all very cringe Protestant stuff. Like I got baptized in the Jordan, or I got dunked
were they
in the
taking
Jordan.
you around on a golf cart? Were they taking you around on a golf cart with spritzy water to cool you off?
No, there was no golf cart. We were walking. We were high schoolers, so we weren't given that bougie treatment. But
sorry, I just saw it that way. Ladies and gentlemen, before you get your Perrier water at the next stop.
It was actually brutal. It was actually we were hiking. We were up at 6 a.m. every day, and we pretty much out until the late evening. So we did. We did a lot of
This changed you.
Yeah, it did. Just kind of seeing the reality of the sites. Going to the Dead Sea, for example. And going and seeing the very spot where Elijah called fire down on the altar against the prophets of Baal and things of that nature. Things that are as Christians we believe are
cool.
real, right?
I've not been.
I think it's unfortunate that the Christian Zionists have watered down what can be an actually, a beautiful place. I would consider the Holy Land to be Christian land. It's not Jewish land, it's Christian land.
Right.
And so it's actually unfortunate that we've allowed them to sort of have a monopoly over it. And when in fact it actually is our land, it's our holy sites. So that was really impactful for me. And then after that, I sort of redevoted my life to Christ. I went off to college. I was a Bible study leader and things of that nature. That's when I sort of got into apologetics. So I really got involved into apologetics. I followed guys like Frank Turek was very influential to me during that time.
Like Frank Turek?
the
guy
apologist who
from
tours.
TPUSA guy, Frank Turek.
I don't know if he's involved with TPUSA.
Oh, I thought he was like a visiting pastor. Was he a Calvary Church guy?
I'm not even sure. No, I don't believe he was Calvary Church, but I just know him from his apologetics work because he wrote the book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. And that book is actually very well done as far as, just a general overview of like why the Christian faith is true.
He was a smart guy to you. He helped you.
Yeah, very much. His apologetics work was influential to me. And then this was at the same time, like Alex O'Connor at this point has blown up, but this was when he was at like 10K on YouTube. And so like I would like make
That's like response.
I would make like, well, yeah, and he's got like millions of subscribers now, I think. But
he became the voice of atheism.
Yeah,
like this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and he's actually like much more sympathetic to Christianity now than he used to be. It's actually funny kind of seeing how he's kind of grown out of a lot of those arguments that he used to run back in those early days, like 2016, 2017 timeframe. But so yeah, that's when I actually started my YouTube and my Twitter and everything. It's funny. All my accounts are like, I started them in 2017. So like, it's funny when people are like, how have you been, online for this long and haven't heard of you? It's like, well, I also stopped for a long time. So I started in apologetics there, and then I kind of took a break until COVID really. So I joined the Marine Corps in 2018 when I graduated college.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. So I joined the Marine Corps in 2018. I spent 7 years as a Marine Corps officer, aircraft maintenance officer, deployed in 2022. And that was just because like my senior year of college, so I deployed on the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is an aircraft carrier. We were out in the South China Sea doing the, mandatory military industrial complex, protecting, spreading freedom and democracy, with Taiwan out there. That's what we're told, right? But
we could get into that big time. By the way, at the time, so it's 219, you're on the boat. Yeah. Were you aware of that? Could you have said that cynical line you just said, which is probably not cynical, it's just true? Could you have said that then, or were you true blue?
As far as like me being bought in, no, I was bought in. So like when I joined the Marine Corps, I did so because I felt that it was a higher purpose. And I'm the type of person that if I do something like that, I'm going to go all out. So I wanted to join the toughest branch, so I'm going to do the Marines. And it's funny because I never even considered, joining the military growing up. Like it was never something I even really considered. And then just randomly, I, felt called to it and I just kind of sold out on it and, started working out every day and, getting in shape to get selected. Cause it's also, to be an officer, you have to get selected. It's not like enlistment where you just sign up and you're in. You have to go through a screening process. True. And there's a 10-week, screening camp effectively. It's called OCS. So that was 2018. And then, I was in training all through 2019 and then, got stationed in San Diego in 2019 and 2020, end of 2019. And that was when COVID happened. This is when I started to really blow up online because I started posting TikTok content regarding politics. So particularly surrounding the, COVID lockdowns, Trump.
Had you been commissioned? Were you an officer then?
Yeah. I was an officer at this point. So I was an officer, but I was careful about what I said online because you can, if as a civilian, you can speak, personally and your personal opinions on things as long as you don't, there's certain left and right lateral limits you can't cross. And so I was also blessed that my boss at the time was a conservative. And so he protected me. He gave me some top cover on a lot of that stuff because I went pretty viral. I had 300,000 followers on TikTok back then. And
you did.
So I kind of blew up on TikTok regarding like political stuff. But then I got banned. So after Trump lost the election, the Dems kind of went all out on censorship. And so I got banned on TikTok. So I kind of I transitioned over to Instagram and I kind of shifted into more just apologetics again. So I've kind of ebbed and flowed between like politics and apologetics ever since 2017.
What'd your mom and dad think of all this?
Well, yeah. So, I'll get into that maybe with the Orthodox when I start look into Orthodoxy, because
Okay.
that's where it starts to get interesting there. So, so 2020, like I said, that's when I blew up. And then end of 2020, so December of 2020, is when I met my now wife at a Turning Point conference of all places, Student Action Summit in December of that year. And so we started dating, and I met her brother, who is now my brother-in-law. And he was the one who sort of introduced me to church history. So I had one conversation with him, and I was just like, I considered myself at that time like a relatively knowledgeable person, because I was in, the apologetics realm, I was in the political realm, and, he started talking about church history, and I didn't know anything about what he was talking about. He started talking about St. Athanasius and, St. Ignatius. And I'm like, who are these guys? Like, why should I care about what they have to say? And to be honest, I was just kind of embarrassed because I didn't know what I was talking about. And
you wanted the knowledge for power.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to prove Protestantism, is true. And so I got this book from, a guy named Roger Olson. He's a evangelical scholar, and he wrote a book called The Story of Christian Theology, and it's basically like a summary of all of church history. It's actually pretty good, and I actually still recommend it to Protestants who want sort of like a church history book from their perspective, because this is actually what exposed me to Orthodoxy. Now, the unfortunate reality here is that simultaneously I was also kind of, my soteriology at this point was very Calvinistic, because I was going to a Calvinist church when I was in San Diego. So I had started to adopt that. And then unfortunately, I was led to believe that St. Augustine was a Calvinist. And so that sort of validated my soteriology. And so I was interested in Orthodoxy at this point. This is now 2021, 2022. And I was deployed all of 2022. So that's when I really dove deep into this. So I was interested in Orthodoxy. I was interested in the concept. I was like, so wait a minute. So there's this whole other half of the church that like never went through a Reformation. Like that's weird. Why didn't they go through a Reformation like the Roman Catholics did? So I was very interested in the idea of Orthodoxy. But I was so convinced of Calvinism that it really kept me away for a long time. And so
it didn't feel gloomy to you? You hadn't hit the gloomy stage of Calvinism yet?
And it's actually funny. I really, I sort of kicked against the goads when it comes to Calvinism. I really actually didn't like it at first. And I spent like a whole year like trying to debunk it. And then I ended up in that year being convinced of it. And then, like I said, it was St. Augustine, that was sort of what validated it. And that sort of like sealed the deal for me. I was like, oh, okay. So it's also found in church history. So it must be true. Well, then I started actually reading St. Augustine, and I read him say that you can be regenerate and justified and still fall away. And anyone that knows Calvinistic soteriology knows that that's not Calvinism. That's the opposite of Calvinism. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, so he clearly wasn't a Calvinist then. So that's odd. And so that sort of like sparked my interest then back in Orthodoxy. And so this is now 2023, September of 2023, I believe it was September, is when my wife and I decided to go and check out Father Josiah's parish, St. Andrew's, there in California, Southern California, because it was only 45 minutes from where we were living. And we knew Father Josiah, just from online, because he's famous and things of that nature. And so we went and checked it out. And at this point, I had been debating with Orthodox and Roman Catholics, particularly on like Nicaea II and iconography. And I spent like a lot of time like on TikTok debating them, because I was back on TikTok at this point. And so anyways, that was sort of the context here. And it was actually like, I was so convinced that like iconography was like ahistorical. And it was actually like going and seeing, like, I remember my wife, like we were watching someone venerate an icon, and my wife looked at me and she was like, that's it? Like that's all it is? Like, and it was like actually seeing it, and you're like, yeah, that's not idolatry. That's not idolatry. In fact, it's beautiful, how you're able to, really have an image of the heavenly, right? A window into heaven. Mm-hmm. And so witnessing the iconography, obviously the beauty of the divine liturgy, the homily from Father Josiah. Anyone who's been around Father Josiah knows just like he has an aura, like it's like he's in command of like the entire room. It's just remarkable, actually. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. Just very saintly. I don't know how else to describe it.
I can say I sat with him in Symbolic World last weekend. Just he and I. We talked for a long time, and he's actually not who I thought he was. He's quite gentle and sweet. He actually cried over one of his toasts to Saint Vakhtang, Vakhtang, the king of Georgia, and I felt a kinship. I cry a lot, Ben Michael, but not like because someone took my car or something.
Sure.
But I saw something that you're saying. I saw it as true. So yeah, it was really nice. Yeah.
So and then the nail in the coffin was the nail in my Reformed coffin, because at this point I was Presbyterian confessionally. Was seeing the children line up for communion, and like the kids they were all so well behaved, and they like just watching them, it was like had to be hundreds of kids, and I was like, and you know what came to mind for me, and actually I heard priest after the fact make this point, but I had never heard this point made before. It actually came to my mind naturally. Was looking at the iconography and remembering St. Paul saying, therefore, because we are surrounded by such great cloud of witnesses. And I was thinking, I'm in here and I'm literally surrounded, right? And I, as someone who cares about, my belief system being grounded in truth, I, envision the day that, Lord willing, I may be, blessed with children, and being able to, talk to my kids and be able to show them that our faith is not a dead one. It's not one that ended 2,000 years ago. In fact, these saints are still walking the earth, right? And in fact, a lot of them are, abbots at monasteries that we can go talk to today.
That's right.
And this is a faith that is alive today. That icon right there, whether it be, Elder Ephraim, for example, he was just alive, right? In 2019, he was alive, right? Walking this earth. And so I can, when I raise my children, Lord willing, if I'm blessed with children, when I raise my children in the faith, I can show them that this is not a dead faith. This is alive. And we talk a lot about the apostolic succession our church has, but for me, it was the succession of saints that was more impactful, from the first century to the second century, all the way to the current era. And, that was just what, as someone who cares about my faith being grounded in something, that was really what put it over the edge for me, as far as, just my wife and I left there, and, she was like, I'm not ready for that. But I was like, I'm sold. Like this is it. This is it.
On some level, you're describing history. So you needed to, I had the same experience. I needed history to make sense. Like, where did all the Christians go, kind of thing. Like, it's not making any sense to me. I woke up to that in a little village, Muslim village in Mali in West Africa. And when I saw Muslim tradition playing out, and I saw the way they buried the mother who was taking care of me there, Takadi, she had 11 kids and 6 of them died. All of her sons died before they were 1 or 2. And she was burying her 6th kid. And when I saw the funeral, at the time I was a Protestant. I wasn't anything, to be honest. My parents, the beloved parents, they became Orthodox later, but they were heretics, and they raised me as Episcopalian. And I loved them because I was a good heretic too for a while. And what happened is whatever that was, that Christianity was, that I was participating in, the Muslims beat it. I was like, this thing goes too deep. Whatever they're calling on is rich and deep. And I was like, what is it? Like, what is it? And then, but I couldn't abandon Christ. So I went home and started searching, went to a Catholic monastery and stuff like that. So for me, the history, it sounds like we have the same kind of mind. I needed an answer about chains, links, and continuances. Does that feel true to you too?
Oh yeah, no, continuity. And like, there was a lot of arguments that did convince me of orthodoxy, but the number one, and I bring this up all the time when I speak with Protestants, because I think it's a really easy way for them to understand. It's like, where do you direct a person seeking truth in like the 7th century, for example, or the 13th century, or, any century, especially before the printing press, before, people for the most part were literate, right? Where do you direct them? Where do they go for truth? And, it's just very evident that in every century, the church was the pillar and ground of truth.
Yeah.
And it was where you went. If you wanted to follow Christ, you went to the church because the church is his body. So that was where you went to learn about Christ, and you would hear the scriptures. They would be read publicly. Right. And that was how people that was how they heard the scriptures. It wasn't them alone in their Bible. We're blessed because we get to have the scriptures, we get access to the scriptures, whenever we want them. But most of Christians in all of history didn't have that blessing.
Yeah, that's right.
They didn't have that blessing. So, and guess what? I would argue that they were lacking nothing because they had the sacraments. They had the divine liturgy. They had everything that you need to be a Christian.
And you were waking up to that? That was happening too?
Oh yeah. I was starting to realize okay. And even Nicaea too, right? So I was looking into like high church Protestantism, right? And I was like, okay, there's this huge problem with high church Protestantism because, and maybe you can relate with this because, being Episcopalian, very high church, but it's like, okay, well, how am I going to reject Nicaea too when the church accepted it for literally hundreds and hundreds of years, and it wasn't until the Protestant Reformation that they started to call it into question? Does that even make any sense? Right. So the very church that I'm trying to claim continuity with accepted this council for literally hundreds of years, and it wasn't until the Reformation that they start to call it into question.
Yeah,
and so that just didn't make any sense to me. And that's why I actually believe like the James White position of just no church history, no confessions, no creeds. That's actually more consistent than this sort of Presbyterian and Anglican approach of we accept church authority.
How is it more consistent?
It's more consistent because if you just reject it wholesale.
Oh, I see.
Whereas Whereas the Anglicans and these guys, they sort of pick and choose, right? And it's they're fine with all the first 6 councils, but it's okay, what is it about the 7th that it makes it erroneous compared to the 6th? What's the difference? And why did your church accept it for all these years? So you run into all these problems with high church Protestantism, which is why I just don't think. And my wife actually called it. She said this on her own. She called it pseudo tradition. Because we were confessional PCA Presbyterians for 6 months or so, and at first it was okay, this is what we were looking for. We get our Protestant theology that we love, but we get our tradition too. And it's 6 months in, we're this is pseudo tradition. This isn't actually tradition. Yeah. And that was very evident when we went to divine liturgy. So anyway, right after that, I emailed my local priest and I said, "Hey, Father, I am." After a 2-year journey of studying church history, I am fully convinced that the Orthodox Church is the true church, and we showed up and became catechumens and were baptized on Lazarus Saturday of 2024. And then all this time, while I was before this happened, I actually this is kind of a funny story. People think that I debated as a catechumen, which is not true. I never debated as a catechumen. I debated when I was still Protestant. But and I was going through this whole process, right? So on the tail end of my Protestant journey, I debated Voice of Reason, who is a very well-known Roman Catholic apologist. We debated on the papacy, and I sort of presented the Anglican or Orthodox ecclesiology, to refute him, and so I wasn't claiming to represent the Orthodox Church or anything crazy like that. Looking back on it, obviously I recognize that was probably not wise, but at the time,
Ruslan just put a catechumen on some panel.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's insane.
It's kind of
and the frustrating part about that was it's Gavin Ortland, Trent Horn, and Orthodox catechumen. It's so two of literally the
he did a good job though. He did a good job.
Yeah, literally the poster childs of each paradigm, and then just a catechumen. So, but yeah,
it's a great point. Well, okay, so then you're a catechumen, you become Orthodox. Tell me before I ask you some other questions about, because I like your channel. I got some questions about this concept of nationalism and really race, but we'll get into that. But how are your parents doing during these transitional moments in your life?
Yeah, so Still a work in progress. So at this point now, my brother is a catechumen in the Orthodox Church. My entire in-laws all have been received in the Russian Orthodox Church.
Oh, okay.
And they also came from a Baptist background. And then the rest of my family is, at this point, they're understanding. But it was really hard at first. It was awkward. And I have a great relationship with my family, and my parents love the Lord Jesus, and they love him with a genuine love, and they really strive to follow him. And it's actually funny, and I've pointed this out to them, in their walk with the Lord, they've actually crept like closer to like Orthodox theology, like in their fasting schedule, in their almost like liturgical cycle. My dad, he had everybody stand up for the reading of the scriptures in his, non-denominational Protestant church. It's just like, so it's funny because, and I point this out to people, I'm like, faithful Protestants usually end up like, without, whether they realize it or not, they end up actually creeping closer and closer to like what normal Orthodox Christians do, in their prayer cycle, in their fasting, in their reverence for the scriptures. And it's my parents, I love my parents dearly. Obviously I desire that they become Orthodox. We have a lot of conversations. But I actually think that God kind of put them in my life so that I would have a little bit of a softer heart to Protestants. Because I think if I didn't have that, I think I would have grown very hard-hearted towards Protestants. And I really just am not. I understand where they're coming from, and I obviously desire them to come into the fold. And I'm harsh at times online because they attack the church, and I don't like when people attack Christ's church. But yeah, I do think that God put them in my life. One of the reasons why he put them in my life was so that I wouldn't have that, hard-hearted view of Protestants.
Yeah, because it's kind of, I like that a lot. I think that's, I don't know. I think that's the yin to the polemical yang that you've been blessed. I mean, you're a talker. You're a talker. Like there's people who talk. There's people who don't like to talk. It's not like it's a good or bad thing, but you take ideas and you rip through them and you analyze, and that's a gift. Like not everybody has that, but and your parents, you're right. I think you're right. I have the same situation. My brother and I are both talkers, but there's people in our lives that mediate all the yada yada. So, and so now I think I met your dad. Yeah, he came by.
Yes, you did meet my dad. Yep.
So right now you're a Orthodox Christian, not a catechumen. You run a channel. You are a defender of the faith. You're one of a lot of people that I know out there. Jay, Alex, Soren, Ben, Cleave to Antiquity. Is that Ben? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've done super with all these guys at some point.
Well, then we got to do that.
We're going to do it. Do you think that do you think that voice that's created in that, let's call it in that circle of talkers, are you happy with it as an online presence? Do you question some of it? What is your outlook for the voices that are collaborating to spread orthodoxy online? Are you happy about it?
Definitely. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. So, I would say that the online sphere, I think, and I just talked about this. I was on a Protestant's channel a couple days ago talking about this very topic because I think, Cleave to Antiquity just had a priest on. I can't remember the priest's name, but he was a priest who for a long time had sort of counter-signaled the, Ortho Bros, and, had voiced major concerns about the Ortho Bros and things of that nature. And he said something really good. He said, my message to the Ortho Bros is, I know things have been said, but the growth is undeniable. And so I think it's time that we work together. And, I think that's the right mentality here. There's a lot of voices, a lot of competing voices in the online orthosphere, if you will. My position has always been, I will never, ever go after another Orthodox unless they are coming after me, particularly if they're lying about me, because that really bothers me. And I don't want people to think that I have a particular view that I don't actually have. So I will correct that. But other than that, I really don't go after other Orthodox. And this is the reason. The reason is because obviously it's because we share in the same cup, but also it's because I actually think that people that I disagree with are actually reaching an entire population of people that I'm not reaching. And we'll dive into this with my show. But I've said before, my show is particularly my goal with my show is to reach particularly young men, particularly far-right young men, who are desperately needing a framework, a Christian framework to submit themselves to. And so that's the demographic that I'm reaching with my show. Yep. Now, someone like Dr. Jeannie Constantino, who I have disagreement with, particularly along the lines of, that Orthodox don't do apologetics, things of that nature that have been said. She reaches an entire population of women in her ministry that I would not reach, and I do not reach, and she's bringing these women into the church. And if it wasn't for her, these women wouldn't be in the church, and nice they wouldn't have a chance at salvation. So I don't counter signal someone like that. Definitely not publicly. Maybe I'd have a private conversation, but I would never publicly counter signal something like that because I recognize, hey, I don't necessarily agree. I think some of this stuff is a little bit crypto feminist. And if I'm directly asked, I'll say that. But I think that you are reaching an entire population of people, of women particularly, that I'm not reaching. And all I'm asking for people is likewise, right? Like, look, you don't have to agree with me. I'm not asking for agreement. We can have discourse. Please don't lie about me, first of all. And second of all, please recognize that I'm reaching a demographic of young men that a lot of people don't really care about. To be honest, a lot of people don't care about these guys. They've been ostracized by the church and by society, lied about. And even though a lot of them are very devout, you go to a Vesper service, it's like 90% young men, just spending their Friday or their Saturday night at a church service, right? So all this to say, I think that I personally, contrary to a lot of people's opinions, I love, the state of online orthodoxy. Okay. And all right. And I think that competing voices is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that it's reaching different demographics, and of course it sparks, Twitter wars, and I hate that. I despise it. I very rarely contribute because I just despise it so much. And, like there was one during Holy Week and it just made me literally want to vomit. It was so sad seeing. So that, that type of stuff I generally try not to contribute to because gosh, we have so many opponents in the world. Like we have people who hate us and want us dead and they want to indoctrinate our children. And, it's like, how about we recognize the enemy here, that it's not each other. It's not the person we're sharing up with. You know what I mean?
There are some camps. Let's just call them camps. So the Orthodox tent, let's just imagine it as global. The Orthodoxy is a thing that exists in the world as Christ's body. And somewhere in there, in those camps, underneath that big tent, there are folks who think that the online presence should all speak in unison or something, which I find that troublesome. I know some leaders within OCA that think like this. I actually don't think it's possible, and I actually don't think it's relevant to salvation on that sense. Like, okay, I'll just tell you, there's certain things. I've been watching your pod. I know young people in my world. You know them too. They're in my own family that they like what you're saying, for instance, on nationalism and race. I got issues with it. So we'll get into that right now. But like, it's good that you're here. It's good that you're talking about it. You might be teaching a type of heresy. We'll find out. Most of us don't know. The church tells us like 400 years later. You know what I'm saying? The idea that, I'll just say it like this and then I'll put a question to you. The idea that Ben Michael at, what are you, like 26?
I'm 29.
29? At 29 years of age, got it all right? That would be kind of a weird assumption. Highly odd to imagine that you got it all right at 29. So we're all in this together. I'm not getting it right at 59. So also then, does that mean we shut up? No, I don't think that's possible. So here's a question. One of the things that pops up, it's not just you though, bro. It happens with Jay and lots of people.
Yeah.
There's this category called white. And can you just, my first question is how do you understand that category? Like, who's in?
Sure.
Who's out?
Yeah.
Help me out. Hey, real quick, meet Sarah in Mozambique. 2 years she'll be there. She's from Oregon and, well, she was deeply engaged in the work of serving people who are in need of social assistance. She was a social worker, but she's a lot more than that. Sarah in Mozambique, one of our beloved field workers. Sarah, can you hear me from Mozambique?
Yes, for now.
Sarah is new to First Things. She's in phase 1. How's phase 1 going, the immersion ship?
Yesterday was 1 month in Mozambique.
1 month. I think you're parasite free. That's the word.
Let's hope so. So far I am.
Come on, there's more to it than that. It's fun to joke about medical problems when you're in Africa, but like, what are you seeing around you? How's life?
Well, we've been going back and forth a lot between the village and the city, so we're kind of getting this cultural whiplash of urban Mozambique and then very, very rural Mozambique. But it's fun because we're getting a kind of a foot in both places.
Are you happy with the decision to sort of try a new life?
Life here is good. It's very overstimulating and very restful in the same day. You feel like there's so much to take in that your brain can't even handle it, and then all of a sudden everything just becomes siesta and you just lay around for the afternoon. You can log it all into the long-term memory and try to make sense of it.
Is it difficult to learn the language? What's happening with you in language? And is language important to you?
Well, language has been a challenge, and mainly that's because we are learning 2 languages at the same time. We're learning Portuguese, which is the colonial language, and Makua, which is the tribal language here. And we're not doing one and then the other. We're learning them simultaneously. And everybody I told that I was going to be doing that just gave me this look like you're absolutely crazy. But once you get here and once you start doing the learning, it really makes sense why you need to learn them simultaneously in order to be successful, because the way that people speak here, it's woven together in the same sentence and in the same conversation. You have both. We're just learning like babies right now, and eventually it's all going to congeal into cohesive thought someday.
All right, we're going to talk again. We're going to do this every couple of months. And this is going to appear on our podcast and in all kinds of shorts. And you're going to be like, why do I have to be used this way? And the reason is because you are wonderful and doing something special. And thanks for being on for a second anyway. There's more to say. I don't think it's going to upload if we keep recording.
Yeah. So I'll say a couple things. I have a lot to say about this particular topic. So there is like, so another way to say it would just be like ethnically European would be another way to say white. It's not always a helpful term, white. And I think there is nuance. So one of the analogies I give, and I gave this in my show, I don't know if you saw this, but the Amazon rainforest, for example, there's all these like transitionary phases at the ends, at the borders of the Amazon rainforest, right? So it's like, it's not clear where it starts and where it ends. But the Amazon rainforest is an objective thing that exists at a very particular location, even though there's nuance and there's, transitionary phases on the outskirts of the forest. And so I think of like a concept like race is similar, right? So there's going to be exceptions. There's going to be normative principles. And so when we talk about this topic, we have to recognize, that there is nuance, and we acknowledge there's nuance. But what I find problematic, and we can get into some of the Saints quotes that actually talk about this, is when people take the nuance and they they basically posit that because there's these nuances and because there's these sort of like exceptions to the rule, it means there is no rule. There's no such thing as race. Now, basically, a little bit of a general overview of what I would say race is. I would say it's a subcategory of species. So, like, obviously, all humans are the same species, all created in the image of God, all equal before God. All that is true. And then a subcategory of species would be race, and then a subcategory of race would be ethnicity. And that's like a very general, general overview.
Is a subcategory of race.
Ethnicity is a subcategory of race, right? So, like, for example, so even though I might have a different ethnic heritage than a Russian, right? We are the same race. So, and I would say that there are. So, and it's very clear that, like, ethnically, I have more in common with a Russian than I do with, like, a Nigerian. Like, that's very obvious.
Ethnically.
Yeah. Ethnically, there's more in common, right? More in common. So we're not the same ethnicity, but because we're the same race, there are ethnic similarities between us. Well, that's the point I'm making. Okay. Yeah.
Help me out, because a Russian does not share your language. A Nigerian does.
That's an ethnicity. So language is part of ethnicity.
Exactly.
But I'm talking.
So
I'm talking
what makes
about particularly
a Russian more like you than a Nigerian?
Sure. Well, it's going to be so all of Europe comes from three, you could say, ethnic heritages. There's the Western hunter-gatherers, the Eastern farmers, and then the Proto-Indo-Europeans. And all three of those populations basically were isolated together in what we now know as Europe. And what makes the Europeans unique as a sort of a racial category is that they were able to fend off for the most part, the Ottomans, right? And so the Arab integration, as far as the ethnic integration, didn't really occur in Europe like it occurred, in the outskirts of it. So places that used to consist of what we would maybe call today white, like you'll see, there's Palestinians, for example, who are, and this is where the nuances come in. There's Palestinians, for example, who are not Arab, and they actually take a lot of pride in this. They take a lot of pride in the fact that their family has never intermarried with the Ottomans that were there. Mm-hmm. And they actually look like very white. Like they look like a lot of our iconography, actually. They look they look like Mediterranean, basically. They look like an Italian or a Greek.
But a lot of our iconography doesn't look very white.
Oh, I would say that our primary icon of Christ, I'm always terrible at the pronunciation, Pantocrator, or however you, Pantocrator. I would say that I would consider that to be white. When I'm talking about the term, I would say that looks, it's Mediterranean. It's sort of like Italian or Greek. But all this to say, the way I'm defining it, and we can get into some of the saints' quotes on this, because this is not like foreign to.
Because I want to find out if you think this. Do you think the saints, at least the hagiography I'm aware of? See, this is my point, and then I'll ask the question. You're using a term as defined by atheistic philosophers of the 17th and 18th centuries. Mm-hmm. In other words, and even that historical argument you just made about what a white person is and Turks, and these are all European ideas that are not, they're born out of the Enlightenment, and then they move into a type of eugenicism. And so I hear what you're saying. I do think there's something like a whiteness, but in history, race is not used that way. Race is always associated with language. For instance, I don't know if you've ever been to Africa, bro, but there's no black people there. They don't know themselves that way. They don't talk like that. They don't know themselves as a unified group of people. They know themselves as Songhai, Bambara, Igbo. And just like in Europe, they know themselves as the Germans, the French. It's false the way that the Enlightenment scientists, atheists, don't forget that, the way they created these divisions. In other words, what I'm saying is the spiritual hierarchy does not allow for this term white the way you use it. It doesn't allow for it. It's like tallness. Tallness is it's a biological reality. Tall people could be lumped together, and they could be given a nation because they don't like small houses. And they would build tall houses. And that would be a type of unity. But it's not one as a Christian I really give a shit about. It's like, it seems like such a low level reality, but it's a reality. But it seems like way too low for us to draw on as relevant. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. So I think we can use it colloquially, right? So that's when I say white, I'm using it colloquially.
By the way, can I toast you? I didn't toast yet. Gagi Marjos, to your arrival here, to all the things that our conversation may bring, but also to us being together in church. Gagi Marjos.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, brother.
I realized I didn't toast. Go ahead with
no,
this.
all good.
Because this is at the center for me of this conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I reference the term the white race, for example, I'm using it colloquially to mean ethnically European. That's what I'm using it to mean, because there's nuance here, but that's how I'm using the term. And this is not off base from the way that because Saint Nikolai actually defines it in On War in the Bible. He literally says, all the peoples of Europe and America, these are the peoples of the white race. So he literally says in this whole piece on War in the Bible, he uses the phrase the white race, I think 6 times. And each time he's referring to Europeans and Americans. And it's going to be Europeans, and obviously it's former colonies like, Australia, New Zealand, things of that nature. But so he's using it. I would agree. This is a colloquial usage, right? Because a more accurate term would just mean just be European. That's what we mean when we say the white race.
Who means that? Who means that? I don't think the saints are unified about the white. Veliborovich is a 20th century saint, so I'm cool, but he's using the same construct from the Enlightenment.
But that's a genetic fallacy, though. That's just to say, just because that this came from the Enlightenment period, that therefore it's wrong. I think it can be used colloquially.
Great question. That's a great question.
You know what I mean? Well, that's what I'm saying.
Can we agree on that term? Can we agree on that term, because it comes out of genetic studies? In other words, it comes out of a new kind of science that says, hey, look at these genetic differences, when in reality, there are very few genetic differences that create race. There's great differences that create ethnicity. But of course, the unifying factor at the top of the thing is theos. So I find you as an Orthodox Christian, which seems to be the unifying factor between us, which seems to put race I know, I agree. I think it's the highest one.
I agree with that, of course.
So let's just stick with that. So Orthodox nationalism would include a ton of black people who have chosen to be Orthodox, correct? It
would include that if that population was part of that nation's identity. So, for example, a Nigerian nationalism is going to be predominantly Nigerian. A Japanese nationalism is going to be predominantly Japanese. So applying the same, and no one seems to have issue with that. Right.
I have issue. Well,
if you want me that's fine. And I actually agree. So when it comes to homogeneity, and we can get into homogeneity now if you want. When it comes to homogeneity, I think there's only 2 consistent positions. Everybody gets it or nobody gets it. That's really it. Those are the only two options. And I can get into a quote that I have from Elder Athanasios on this very topic, because he actually says that the abolition of borders, basically the breaking down of homogeneity, is from the Antichrist. And I have similar stuff this is all over the saints. I have similar stuff from Saint Seraphim Rose saying the abolition of race is from the Antichrist.
Well, so, hold on. Yeah. Again, if you go back to Saint Cyril, or if you go back to Methodius, they are using the word race, but it's mean to be those who share a common faith and or a common language.
Oh, no, not Saint Seraphim Rose. Absolutely not. Because he explicitly...
Is he explicitly... Okay. Where does he talk about white unity? I would love to see that.
Well, but no one's advocating necessarily for white unity. Once again, when I'm using the term white colloquially, to refer to like nations that are majority white, because this is the problem that I'm identifying, and this is something that a lot of people are seeing. It's probably why the young people in your life are identifying with what I'm saying.
This is true.
Is because people are noticing a double standard, and it only seems to apply to white majority nations. So if I say, for example, that America should be majority or super majority white, like people's alarm bells go off. They think I'm like a white supremacist and things of this nature. And if I were to say the same thing about any other country, really any other non-white country, like Japan, Japan should be super majority, Japanese. And that means ethnically, that means everything. All the use of the term.
Are they yellow? No, because you're saying Japanese. That's an ethnicity.
Asian. The race would be Asian. The race would be Asian, though.
Whoa. So the Japanese and the Chinese, that would be one big nation? Because that doesn't feel right to me.
It's not a nation. So nation in antiquity was actually equated more with ethnicity.
Yes.
So, okay,
and
let's back up. Let's back up on the concept of race and what the word can mean. So race can literally mean, it can mean a family. It can mean a nation. Again, in the modern colloquial sense, it means it's a subcategory of species. That's how people use it in the modern colloquial sense, which I've 100%. Already acknowledged is colloquial, and which the saints use in a colloquial sense because it's how we speak.
Wait, hold on. Can I just challenge you on 1 second on
Sure.
this? And we can talk about other stuff, but when you say the saints challenge, what I'm trying to get at is the whiteness or the blackness, the yellowness. Because remember, those were the categories of the saint. The people who created the white category also created brown categories, black categories, yellow categories, and red categories. So this isn't out of the blue. This isn't dropped from Mars. There's a whole series of conversations about what red people are like. But we've gotten rid of that in the last 30 years is because, quote, white people are the ones who are now feeling, holy shit, what's going on here? And I don't blame them. I want to say this to you young guys. I get it. I just think you're trying to claim whiteness to protect you. It's not going to protect you because it's a dumb category.
Well,
what do you think of that?
But here's what's interesting to me about that, because it's like I get told that whiteness doesn't exist, and then simultaneously,
I didn't say that. I say it's a low resolution category. But go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's talk about why I think the rhetoric is important, though, is because the left will use whiteness. They'll understand what whiteness is, right? When they're blaming us for quote unquote atrocities that we've committed, that literally every people group has committed, by the way.
Correct.
And I can defend that. But they have no problem knowing what whiteness is, right? When they're talking about the atrocities we commit. But then when you say you're a white man, like all of a sudden they don't know what that means. They don't know what white is, right? And so I actually think the enemies, like sort of the modernists have actually done a reasonable job of like identifying this. Like for example, an Italian and a German face the same amount of like discrimination from academia, right? Because they're both in this category that we're being told is made up. I'm not saying you're saying this, but they're both in this category that we're being told is made up. And it's like, okay, so you guys seem to understand this, but then when someone wants to identify as that in some sort of positive sense, now it's problematic. So I'm fine with I sometimes will say European. If I'm like, I actually think European, and I tell this to guys. I say, look, I think the concept or using the term white, it actually like people they've undergone so much propaganda that it actually like sets off alarm bells. When I put the phrase "the white race" in a video title, I'm getting called a white supremacist by literally using a phrase. Like that's insane. That's crazy. So, so all this to say, I do think that there are problems with the term. I'm not saying there aren't. I think it has its uses. I think it has its uses and it has its purposes. A more genuine term is going to be, again, maybe like the continental identity or something would be like European, because that's what we're talking about. And we're talking about the common heritage in Europe.
Okay, excellent. I get it. That's a nice way. I always think of Chuck D from Public Enemy. The hater taught hate, now we're gangbanging. The hater here is not white people. The hater is a worldview called atheism. And the atheism is what created this term, whiteness, blackness, brownness, because it's a scientific term that is terribly, terribly insufficient for almost every interaction between human beings. In other words, what I'm trying to say, it's a low resolution concept used by politicians to divide people. And for every Orthodox Christian, I would just say this, and I want to move on because I want to get into nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
For every Orthodox Christian that embraces that low resolution, by the way, again, I'm saying low resolution because it's real. It's emerged as real. Just try to remember, for me anyway, from my perspective, it's not our term. It's not an Orthodox Christian way of seeing the world. We know, look at all the brown, like very brown saints from the first 3 centuries. They were Orthodox. They're in the desert. They're brown as brown can be. And like the idea that Christianity is white is a very dangerous concept, not because the progressives pointed out, it's because it's not real.
But nobody's saying that Christianity is white. Nobody is saying that Christianity is white.
Agreed.
And so are you willing? So I'm just curious. Are you willing to say that St. Nikolai was wrong to use the term?
St. Nikolai does not use white the way it's being used online to claim some sort. Do you think St. Nikolai is saying that America should be white?
No. I'm saying that St. Nikolai is affirming the existence of something called the white race as defined by Europeans and Americans. He's saying there's a common heritage between Europeans and Americans that is this concept of the white race.
I would say this. I've read tons of St. Nicholas Velimirovich. I missed that part. And it's by no means the energy of his canon of writings. It's like a throwaway line that he's using as per the 20th century. So I would say like this, he's not wrong. There is a whiteness. I don't think he's using it as something very relevant in our lives toward our spiritual salvation. I think it's a throwaway, but I think it's very powerful for angry men who want to regain something, which is like their identity. But it's the wrong identity. It's again, I'm tall, but it's not that relevant to me when I come to meet you. It's not that important.
Okay, but the point, I get that you're saying that race inherently is not relevant, which is true only insofar as this, right? Race as a category, sure, is not relevant, but again, ethnicity is relevant.
I agree.
And the point, and hang on a second, the point here though is that all of the ethnicities that would fall under the category of the white race, those are the ethnicities that are being targeted primarily. That's the point. Currently, but
you would argue, I think you would argue that within the machine that is Europe after 1492, in other words, within the Christian machine, which is a heretical machine, it's not Orthodox, within that machine that did so many good white things, there were other ethnicities that were targeted. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and those were rightly called out by the church, actually, and criticized by. So
we should do the same thing now. I agree.
Exactly, and that's all I'm advocating for. And so, listen,
but the political systems did not call them out. They called them out in the 20th century. They didn't call them out for like 300 years.
But the Orthodox political systems, particularly like under Tsar St. Nicholas, did reinforce the preservation of the Russian ethnic heritage. And we see this all throughout the 20th century. And then obviously, really, once they were free from the Soviet Empire, where they had tried to deracinate the Russian ethnicity, because this is what the communists do, by the way. This is what Marx says. Marx says to strip a man of his identity, it's, that's how you're able to control him.
That's the Marxist lexicon. Don't use it. We don't have to use their lexicon. That's the atheist lexicon.
But this is what Saint Seraphim Rose, and this is actually relevant to what I'm saying right now, so I'll go ahead and read it, because this is what Saint Seraphim Rose says right here. This is called the distortion of Christian equality. So this is what he's talking about in this whole paper, is how these modernists, these Marxists, have taken something that is Christian, which is the notion that we're all equal under God. Right. And they've actually created something from the Antichrist as a result of it. And this is what he says. We have one particular idea right now that's taking possession of people. These socialists were talking about a great new utopian age, which is going to come when all distinctions of class and race and religion and so forth are abolished. There will be a great new society, they said, when everybody is equal. This idea, of course, was based originally upon Christianity, but it distorted Christianity and amounted to its opposite. So the whole point here is that, look, this concept of, let's just say, what if we said white ethnicities? Would that make you feel better about it? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about ethnicities that are white.
It empowers that term, which is a genus. It's a genus. It's a type of genetic reality. You are white on some genetic level, but it's almost not relevant. But we can. It's got relevance.
Okay,
I'll give it to you. But
when I say the white race, I'm talking about white ethnicities, and white ethnicities particularly are the ones that are being targeted and deracinated, which is why when I show up to university, everybody else's experiences are validated. Their ethnic heritage is validated and celebrated, except for mine. I have to apologize for mine, in fact, even though my ethnicity is one that literally contributed to the world's civilization. And
I agree with that, but your ethnicity is American. That's because of ethnogenesis? Because that's a weird ethnicity.
Yeah, we can get into this. Yeah. So I believe that at this point, that Americans have undergone ethnogenesis. So, like, for example, I am ethnically, like anciently, I'd be ethnically German, Scandinavian, and English, right? But I don't speak the English dialect that they speak in the UK. I don't speak German. I don't speak any Scandinavian language. I have virtually no heritage in any of these nations, right? I have undergone full ethnogenesis at this point. Like, my entire loyalty, my culture, my language, my dialect, everything is American. It's American. Now, there are remnants from European heritage, and this is why we share common things with the European lands, right? Because we've brought aspects of the culture from over there.
But one of the remnants is your straight nose. That's one of the remnants is your straight nose, right?
Okay, sure.
But a black, like my cousin, my brother-in-law's flat nose goes back further than your straight nose. His family's been here longer than your family. Trust me.
Been here as in America?
Yeah.
Well, my last name has been here since 1600s, but that's not relevant though. But that's not relevant.
No, it's totally relevant because there's an ethnogenesis that occurred that created Black Americans, right?
So actually, yes, I actually do agree with that. So you could sort of, in that sense, there's in a sense, there are two American ethnicities. There's the Black American, the heritage Blacks, and then the ethnic heritage of the Europeans.
Chinese railroad workers?
Primarily. Well, but that's a tiny population. There was a couple hundred thousand. I know,
but I'm just saying, are they American?
But a couple 100,000 of them. Well, listen, it's kind of like this, right? So
I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm trying to be a jerk.
I got
I'm trying to figure out
but again,
how this works.
Amazon rainforest, right? So we got to talk about what makes a country, what makes a nation.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, it is a fact that the supermajority of who built this country is Northern and Western Europeans. That is the supermajority. Were there others who did? Were there Black Americans? Yes. Were there a few Chinese? Yes. There were others that contributed. Mm-hmm. But the primary ethnicity that built this nation came from Northern and Western Europe.
Okay,
and this was true.
Hold on. I agree.
Okay.
Let me just interrupt for one second. The premise there, so just so people who are listening understand.
Yeah.
I agree when you use the verb built, mm-hmm. that means political systems too, and that means infrastructure, mm-hmm. language. I agree. They are predominantly, especially in the first phase, they're mm-hmm. Northern Europeans. But here's my question. Who you're calling something like Euro, right? White. Let's call them white. But let's just call them Euro. Whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm with you. But this is my question. Is it more important that they were Euro white, or is it more important that they were Protestant? Because for me, one category is way more important than the other one. It tells me much more about the country. It tells me much more about the people. And so I'm really interested in the fact that you're Orthodox and you ain't Protestant. This is not your home, bro. I don't know why you keep claiming.
No, I don't agree with that. No, I don't agree with that framing because the founding fathers founded the country as a Christian nation. And although they were predominantly Protestant, they viewed Orthodoxy as a valid form of Christianity. And we know this because of Philip Ludwell III, who was the first convert to Orthodoxy here in America. We know this from John Paradise, who was the first naturalized American citizen, and he was Greek Orthodox. We know this because of the 1,400 Greek Orthodox that were in St. Augustine, Florida in 1768. We know this because of the Russian Orthodox that were in Alaska that made up a third of the population when they were absorbed in the country. So look, there was very clearly an acknowledgement that Orthodoxy and Roman Catholicism were valid forms of Christianity, right? So just because the founding fathers were themselves primarily Protestant does not mean that they didn't see Orthodoxy as a valid expression of Christianity.
Could that same excellent example, there are also pockets of, let's call it race, that were early on here that were not connected to Northern Europeans. Are they also validly able to say that they're welcome here and that this is a black country, brown country, red country?
Well, we can look at the early decrees of the founding fathers, like the Naturalization Act of 1790, that limited naturalization to Europeans. So we can see that they made this was a very crucial aspect of the identity, right? And I agree that Christianity in a general sense you can't say it was one particular form of Christianity because there was various Protestant groups, different states had different
Catholics,
Protestant heritages, and one Catholic, one Maryland, right? So unlike in the example of race, where we have a unified identity that the founding fathers saw as being crucial to America's identity via the Naturalization Acts of 1790 and every Naturalization Act that followed until 1965,
right?
That was a crucial aspect of American identity, and the other crucial aspect was Christianity in a general sense, of which they found Orthodoxy to be a valid expression of. So I think it's a false equivalency. And by the way, I would just like to, for the listeners that think I'm like, I don't know what your listeners think about what I'm saying right now. So if I can clarify my position.
I think they're really interested. Okay. I think this is
I just want to make sure I'm not a white nationalist. I'm not a white supremacist. I reject all those labels. I just believe that ethnic heritage matters in what makes a country. I think if you brought a bunch of Indians over here and they converted to Christianity and they adopted the American ethos per se, I do not believe America would still be America. I do believe that
really?
Ethnicity matters. Yeah, I do believe that ethnicity matters for a country's identity. But I do not believe it's the most important aspect of an identity. I think that, of course, Christianity is the fundamental fabric in which America was founded. I, of course, agreed with that. But I think it's wrong to say that just because it's the most important thing, that there's not other things that matter. Like you could say the same thing about language, right? If a bunch of people came over here and they were speaking, German instead of English, and they adopted everything else about America, I don't believe that America would still be America. It would be a different country. It would be like, a different flavor of like Germany or something. It wouldn't be America anymore. So
because of the racial here meaning genus, genetic makeup, right? Because that Indian guy you're describing comes over, speaks English, adopts. Well, you're saying Orthodox Christianity.
No,
I'm saying one of the Christianities.
I'm saying if in the entire let me clarify. If the entire American population was replaced by Indians, that's what I'm saying.
But also they became Protestant, and they became, let's call them capitalists. I don't know what the other categories are that they have to do. You're saying it still wouldn't be properly American, even though they adopted all the other categories of Americanness except for genus, their genetics.
Well, what I'm saying is that it wouldn't
wild,
be America. I'm saying
Michael.
It wouldn't be America anymore. It would be a different country. Just like if Japan, same thing happened to Japan. If a bunch of Indians went to Japan and started speaking Japanese and adopted Japanese culture, it wouldn't be Japan anymore. It would be India. It would be Indian speaking Japanese. That's what it would be.
That's interesting. So the people that are minorities in any given location that fully adopt language, Okay, this is tough for me to understand. This is where I struggle in these conversations.
Yep.
So like, let's just use Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Sure.
That dude, when he goes to Greece, is beloved. He speaks Greek. He walks into a stadium and they call him, right, like a Greek king. They love him to death. And you're going, too many of you guys, we don't have Greece anymore. It doesn't make sense to me at all. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Well, I think the Greeks would agree if his ethnic heritage was replaced all of Greece, like that, the Greeks would agree.
His blackness, let's call it that, because you're using ethnic and genetic, you're moving them around.
Well, but if he intermarries with the Greeks, right, and his lineage basically continues to intermarry with the Greeks, right?
His blood,
like he would undergo ethnogenesis. Like that, so it's not just because like he could undergo ethnogenesis. There's nothing preventing him from undergoing ethnogenesis. That's the point. So,
but
by the way,
does he have to intermarry? Does he have to? In other words, if he marries a Nigerian there, and then they marry Nigerian, but they all speak Greek, they all go to Orthodox Church.
That's its own like Nigerian nation that's then having its own like homogeneity within this other sovereign nation
because of the genetics.
Because he's Nigerian. So you just said you called him Nigerian, so not Greek, because that's a contradiction. Well, right?
No.
Can I become Nigerian? Let me ask you this, John. If I go to Nigeria,
great question,
and my wife and I go there and we have kids, and we're white, would I be ethnically Nigerian?
Ask the Dutch who went to South Africa. They call themselves Africans all the time. Yeah. Okay.
Again, that's a distinction between. So you think I would be ethnically Nigerian? Because I would say that would be a colloquialism. They did not consider themselves ethnically.
You would be ethnically Nigerian. You would be genetically born of something like a European genus.
So to me, that's a reductio.
What's that?
Like to me, that's a reductio ad absurdum. To say that if I went to Nigeria and had children with my wife, my white wife, and my children were white, that we would be an ethnically Nigerian family. That to me is
ethnically.
Nonsense.
In other words, your language, your culture, your diet. See, this is the problem with this conversation. This has been really helpful, though. I'm so blessed to have you on the channel. It's beautiful. The problem is I would just say you guys, but I'll say you. But the guys online that I love and also get mad at is you drop down. I see genus as a low resolution reality. And you guys drop down into genus all the time, into genetics. And you go white, ethnic. And white is not an ethnic category. That's all I'm trying to say. White is not an ethnic. Ethnicity is language, diet, and culture and customs. So I lived in places for long periods of time where people would go, you're Malian, you're Georgian. And I'm like, I'm not Georgian. I was born in America. They know that I have genetics that start somewhere else, but they see that I'm becoming like them. And what I'm saying is you don't have to be afraid about the genetics. The genetics are low resolution. But I could be wrong.
Well, let me ask you this question. So I actually think there's something to be said there. So let me extend my analogy, right? Let's say me and 5 million other Europeans go to ethnic Europeans go to Nigeria, and we adopt their culture and things of this nature. But we remain. We only marry within our own group, right? Within the 5 million of us that came, and we start to reproduce, and they actually start to become a minority. The Nigerians that were there before become a minority.
Do you become Muslim? Do you become Muslim? And if you're an Igbo, remember Nigeria is created by the Nigerian borders are created by Europeans. But let's say you go to the Igbo nation, which is not the same as Nigeria, but you go to Igbo.
I'm not sure if it's relevant to the analogy, but sure.
Well, you join Igbo land, which was actually a place before the Europeans came.
But the point is if we went there and we become the majority, and basically it becomes like a majority white.
Do you speak Igbo?
Sure. Yes.
We adopted
Muslim? Every other aspect.
Are you Muslim?
Yes. Yep. Became Muslim, adopted all the other culture aspects, but the only thing is that we only intermarried with ourselves, with the 5 million of us, and we reproduced.
That's called Europe. The only thing that unites Europe is Christianity. That's
okay,
what Europe is.
But what I'm asking you is it
poured
still,
into Europe.
What I'm asking you,
all
but John,
those tribes, all those disparate tribes poured into Europe.
I got you. But what I'm asking you is, would it still be Nigeria if we did that?
It would be Igbo land, and you
no. But
yes.
I'm asking you, in the analogy of Nigeria, right? Would it still be Nigeria if it was a bunch of Europeans who went there and adopted the culture, but we only intermarried with ourselves and maintained all of our prior ethnic heritage? We didn't intermarry with the locals at all, and we basically have our own homogeneity, but we just adopted their culture. Are we Nigerian? Is that a Nigerian group?
Yes, it's Nigerian. I just want to know, you got to remember something. Within Nigeria, there are many little ethnic nations.
Maybe there's a better country. Japan.
Well, like Ethiopia. Ethiopia is basically Ethiopians. Now,
sure.
There are some others in Ethiopia. There are other types of people in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
The Amharic are different than the Tigrinya. What I'm trying to say is you have to have a pure beginning, and that's not really a reality in history. In other words, the thing you're hoping for is some sort of genetic purity. It's very rare in history that we see this.
I would not say that. I would not say that's what I'm hoping for. I would say, so what I'm hoping for is a super majority of those that found in my country. I think every country has a right to that. Yeah. I think every nation has a right to maintain the supermajority of those the identity of the supermajority that founded their nation. And I do want to read, we're kind of going in circles a lot here.
This has been really, really helpful to me.
Can I just read this one quote by Elder Athanasios? And I think you've heard this probably if you listen to my show, but I do want to play it, read it for the audience here. So he says this, it's a spiritual testament on Tobit. It's an excerpt from basically a teaching he gave on Tobit, and it's Elder Athanasios, who he just proposed in, I think, 2006. So he's not canonized yet, but he very highly respected in Greece. So he says this: children, we continue our theme of love for our homeland and our compatriots. We said last time that the homeland is something that is determined by the word of God. In other words, God himself wants there to be borders of peoples, and consequently individual homelands. Thus, our whole earth is divided into homelands that have borders. But while God pays attention to this point that I'm about to tell you, God determines borders for the peoples, as the Apostle Paul says to the Athenians. He has appointed times and demarcations for their dwellings. The boundaries are the borders, and God has arranged how long a people will live. In other words, he defines the preordained times. What I want you to notice is this. On the contrary here, be careful. It is very important. The Antichrist will break the borders of the peoples. He will become the ruler of the world over the whole earth. This is very important. We expect this. In fact, with the argument that because there are no wars between peoples and peoples must unite, there must be no borders so that there is no war. But this is the work of the Antichrist. This is determined for us as the fathers interpret the Holy Bible. So if you see what is happening now in Europe, the next step is to have no borders. Yeah. Then you will say the Antichrist is coming. So he takes what he's saying about borders, and I would say he's talking about homogeneity because he says individual homelands. Yep. And he likens it to what's happening in Europe right now. So there's something about what's happening in Europe that he's particularly warning about. And he's saying, look, this breaking down of borders that's happening in Europe, and we would say it's now happening in America as well. This is from the Antichrist, because the Antichrist, Agreed. And he says this is his argument. He literally says the Antichrist argument is that with all this unity, peoples will unite. There won't be any wars because there won't be any borders and we'll all just be the same. Like, he's saying this is the argument that the Antichrist is making. And I'm not saying you're saying this, but I am saying that this is ultimately what my whole show is fighting against, is this breaking down of our borders and our identities, particularly in the West, because that is what's happening.
Amen.
We're becoming... Yeah, go ahead.
Amen. However, can I please just say something about this? Mm-hmm. The two major players in the destruction of borders and the false unity of peoples are the Europeans and the Americans. So hold on. Those movements in history, the Masonic, the secular movements of the Europeans and the Americans, by the way, the European Union is an attempt to destroy the distinction between German and French. Mm-hmm. So there is no such thing in history, bro, as European unity. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. There is no white unity. It's never been a thing. Go back and look at the wars in Europe that are constant and consistent from the beginning of time. There is no white unity. You know what there is? Dutch unity. I get that. There's a language, a culture. There's a habit of being. There's a common faith. There's a Dutch unity. I'm all about that. The Dutch should preserve what you call their homeland. There's no white homeland. It's not a thing. It's never been a thing.
I'm not saying that
there'll never be a thing because God does not respect this category. He never has. There's never been a white people.
But again,
I have to say this strongly. You're right. And Saint Velimirovich and I forgot, this is Amphilio. Who did you just
Elder
quote?
Athanasios.
Athanasios are correct about images and signs of the Antichrist. They're right. But whiteness is a canary, man. It's meant to distract you. It's meant to send you down a road that is filled with more strife because it's not real real enough to create true identity in a human soul. It's too weak. It's too weak of a category. That's all I'm saying.
So I just need to reiterate though that when we are using this term, because you just acknowledged the importance of Dutch identity, for example. Right.
Amen.
That is an ethnicity that is under the category of white. So once again, when I say white, I'm referring to ethnicities that fall under this category of white. Like everybody knows that the Dutch are white. That's so fine. So I think, I think it's good that I'm getting this chance to clarify, but I'm not even necessarily advocating for quote unquote white identity.
Yeah, I know.
Because what I'm advocating for is the ethnic heritage and identity in that. And I would say that American ethnicity primarily does fall under that category of white. That's true. So now, are there other heritages here that have been here for a long time? Yes. And those I would say actually are their own ethnicity. And they actually should also have. Oh,
that's interesting.
Of course. Yeah,
so
they would have. Of course.
There's like many categories of Americanness.
Well, so for America specifically, I would say for America is a little bit of a unique case because we've had this African-American population here that are heritage blacks. And so they are their own ethnicity. I mean, they're not really African, right? I mean, they don't. There's not any nation in Africa that they have really any heritage in anymore. Their heritage. They've been here forever, right? Yes. I believe that they are American, and I would say that. So in this context of the conversation, America is almost two separate ethnicities. Like there's two separate ethnicities within America, and that is the Europeans, primarily Western and Northern, and then it's the descendants of the slave population that have been here forever.
Do you advocate in America? I'm not saying by force or violence or camps.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I don't fall for all that progressive nonsense. Okay, you don't scare me, bro. I get it. You're not that dude to me, but I just think there's some real problems with the premise, with the starting points. But anyway, would you advocate in America that eventually would incentivize, let's call it, Black Americans to go back to Africa?
No, I don't personally advocate for that. No.
How about Japanese Americans who've been here since the turn of the 19th century?
So now we're getting into so I would say that those populations, they don't really make up enough to be like their own ethnicity. So like, for example, they're like a fraction of a percent, right? We're talking about a fraction of percent of the United States population now. So like, this is where it gets like ridiculous. And this is why when I talk about nationalism, particularly in the ethnic context, we're talking about supermajority. So in order for a country to remain its identity, it must maintain a supermajority. So we're talking about like 80, 85.
You sound 90%. A little like a Zionist, bro, when it comes to Israel.
Well,
little bit.
because
Gotta keep it Jewish. Gotta keep it Jewish, bro.
No, a couple things here. So, first of all, the problem with it. Well, we can get. I don't know if you want to get into that because there's
Let's
a lot.
go for a little
there.
bit. Just help me with the nationalism part, because politics are going to get it. I mean, you're going to have to talk about. Hold on. Let's just say this. You're going to have to talk about when it comes to nationalizing this worldview. You're going to have to get into laws like, does everybody get to vote, and how do you do it? Like, it's kind of a hard project.
So I lay out a remigration plan in one of my episodes. I can kind of go over a little bit of it right now if you want.
Do a little, and then we'll finish with some more Orthodox Christianity stuff.
So I believe that if we there's really two steps that I think would virtually eliminate this issue. I think, and that's first of all, we debank all illegals. So a lot of people don't understand why we haven't been able to deport illegals. And the reason is because we are not debanking them. So they still are allowed to have bank accounts, which if you just debank them, the vast majority would leave, and then ICE would take care of the rest. ICE would deport the rest. So that gets rid of the illegal population. Now, what about the legals? So the 53% of first generation legal immigrants that are here.
In other words,
particularly post 1965, legal immigrants.
Okay. So immigrants who have come here and they have legal status now.
Yes, exactly.
But they're not white. They're not ethnically white.
This will be blanket.
Or genetically white.
This is blanket. This is all immigrants.
Oh, they could be Euros too?
Yes. Yes, this applies to everyone. I would never advocate for a policy that's like racial specific. That's insanity. Oh, okay. In this day and age, that's insanity. No,
maybe any day and age, but keep going. I'm good.
Maybe any day and age. Yeah, maybe. No, so no, I believe that 53% of, according to the Center of Immigration Studies, 53% of first generation migrants are on welfare. So I think it's absolutely insane that a first generation migrant who just got here can be getting paid to exist, basically, that they're getting paid to literally live here. And so what I've proposed is that first gen migrants, and I'm still working out on how this would apply to potentially second and third, because here's what you have a problem of. You have, like, for example, in Minnesota, my home state, Somalians, where they've been here for a couple generations, but they have full homogeneity. They only intermarry with other Somalis. And so you might have to extend some of this stuff to second and third generation migrants, particularly like welfare, like you're not eligible for welfare if you're a third generation migrant or newer. That alone is a lot of them are going to self-deport. You also have to put in place policies that don't allow them to basically treat America like an economic zone. So they can't basically funnel money back to these home nations. So you can put policies in place for that. All of these things, many of these people would leave if you took their welfare programs and you didn't allow them to send money back home. But many of them.
So would the white boys in South Carolina over here in Gaffney. Fine. They'd all leave too. Fine. Like, they'd be like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, if they're immigrants, then yeah.
But they came. They're the Scots-Irish guys, descendants of the indentured servants. They live right over here. You come find them. They're like, "Hell no! You're taking my payments."
No, because they're eligible for welfare because they're actually Americans. They don't have loyalty to other countries. So yeah, they would be eligible for welfare. I'm talking.
Is there like a generation, like 3 in, 4 in? When did the brown people also get to get welfare?
Well, this isn't just about race. This is about migrants who just got here. Again, this is about migrants who just got here and are literally milking our welfare system. If an American has been here for forever, right, and they've integrated into society and they've adopted our culture, like, we can talk about problems with the welfare state. There's inherent problems with the welfare state in general, right? Sure. I'm just saying in regards to remigration, these people should not be eligible for welfare. And I think a lot of them will self-deport if you take their welfare. But
they're legal, right? Legal meaning they're legal. They're born in the States.
But they're born here. That's
second generation.
Fine.
I'm talking about second generation.
Sure. Second generation. Sure, that's fine. But again, if they're here and they're trying to maintain homogeneity, of their own people, like the Somalis are doing. That's problematic. And so how do we address this problem? Because you can't have policies that are specific to a particular demographic. That I don't believe in that. So you have to put in measures where, like, this particular population, again, is abusing the welfare system at a disproportionate rate, right? Yeah. And so a lot of them would leave if you took them from their welfare program. The final step is crime. If you commit a violent crime, for example, like sexual assault, if you commit sexual assault, automatic deportation. Or if you commit fraud of $100,000 and more, automatic deportation.
Wait,
these type of policies.
If you're identified as a first or second or third generation migrant,
so it'd be prorated,
but not like Bubba from Gaffney. He's good to go.
They would go to jail. They would go to jail for the rest of their life. But the point is that if it's a new immigrant, that's not really our problem as America. Like, that is the home country's problem to deal with. So we would deport them,
even if
and we would toss it over to their legal system.
Okay, so last thing. This is fascinating. I haven't heard I haven't heard this. Help me out. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to poke a hole. I'm trying to just figure out.
Sure.
So can I just give you an example? Let's just give you an example. Two Somalis. It's easy to pick on Somalis. Poor Somalis. But anyway, two Somalis. They have a baby. He grows up in America. Let's just call them whatever. They came over on some crazy war visa. I don't know. Then that kid grows up. That kid has a hard time. He's got a couple of babies out of wedlock. And then one of those babies grows up. Clearly American at this point, I would think. You're not arguing that they're not American, right?
I don't know if they're have they intermarried, or are they still married?
No, they both. Well, the baby mama was, I don't know, Nigerian. Let's throw another black person in there. Or, well, what if the baby mama was white?
John, this is like when the leftists are like, what if a woman, is.
No, but I'm only asking
when they do this like
reason.
crazy scenario for like an abortion. Like,
no. Let's make them all Somalis then. It's cool with me.
Okay. I don't think they're American. No, I think if you have not even intermarried with the American population and you're just Somali and you don't even, most of them don't even speak, a lot of them don't speak English. Like, I mean,
man, you're going to have trouble, bro. I know Dominicans in New York City, in the neighborhood that I was living in. They're like 5 generations deep speaking Spanish.
This is I agree that it's a deep problem. That's another thing I think
you're going to try to get rid of those people if they get caught smoking weed.
Listen, you have to have policies, again, that are fair, that are blanket. You can't have policies targeting demographics. So this is the plan that I've come up with. Again.
But they're Americans.
Well, we're talking about specifically the issue of remigration. There's other problems that the country faces, like crime. We can talk about that. Those are also problems. Another problem, you just brought another problem to the surface, which is language. It's a problem, and like Teddy Roosevelt tried to mandate English as a requirement for migrants that came here, and I think we need to revert back to that. Like, English has always been the normative language here. And so that is problematic, that there are 5th generation migrants that don't speak English. That is extremely problematic. But the problem is you have to cut it off at a certain point. Listen, I ask other people, like, I'm open to ideas on this. Everybody acknowledges the problem. Everybody acknowledges it's a problem that I go to a Virginia mall and it's literally all Muslims and nobody's speaking English.
Yeah.
And I'm the only European in the entire mall, like in America. Like, everybody seems to acknowledge this is a problem, but nobody wants to offer solutions.
I'm going to offer a solution, and I told. By the way, I want to say this to you and to anybody who's listening. Yeah. And by the way, we've had a really nice talk, and I want to I want to tie it up in a bow.
Sure,
it's a real problem, and it's true. You're not lying about this. I see it. I travel. I understand what you're saying. Here's what I think, and then I'll try to give a solution, and then we can finish with this conversation about orthodoxy. Sure. Just a quick one. I have a quick question. The reason that this wasn't it was less of a problem when, 6 million new immigrants came in 1901, is there was an expectation and a true belief within those who already live here that their Protestantism, the way they worship God, and the language they speak here mattered. And so they naturally forced, through cultural, basically, pressure, they forced people, because I'm old, man. I saw some of this in my own grandparents. They forced my grandfather to speak English and be Protestant. He came over as an Orthodox Christian. And if you think Orthodox Christianity was accepted as one of the early positive Christian, you're wrong, bro. They made him get rid of that weird,
I'll respond
depressing,
to that.
and also idolatrous faith. Like, knock it off,
But
bro.
they did that to other Protestants too, though. That's why it's wrong. So they
hold on.
ostracized
Let me
other
finish my
Protestant
point.
heritage too.
That pressure, like on a diamond in the ground, it forced people into a continuity that we call American, but it's just Protestantism. And it's not whiteness, it's Protestantism with a sense of capitalism, with and salt in some, lift yourself up from your bootstraps. And that thing came hard at everyone who came here as a stranger. And I want to just say this. The solution is to have actually people believe. And I think all of our message should go to the people that you so-called people you call Americans. And it's their problem. It's not the problem of the immigrant. The immigrant just comes here just trying to get some money, bro. That's how it works. And if you know something like I know, because I work in Africa, in Georgia, and in all these countries, you know what shows up? If you go to the right little community center, a little note that says, call me, I can get you to America to work in an orange grove under a white dude who wants cheap labor. And what I'm trying to say is, be careful we don't assassinate the wrong people. So be careful.
Yeah. So this is, I agree. So there is an economic dependence upon immigration right now. I agree with that. But the thing is, the same thing was starting to happen in Japan. And then they've started to become more strict in their immigration policy, and their population has actually gone down slightly, and their overall GDP has gone down. But they've adjusted, and now their GDP per capita has actually gone up from what it was before. So there's going to be, after this remigration occurs, there is going to be an adjustment period, right? Where, yes, and I agree with you that there are people that literally are abusing, this cheap labor. And this is literally what things like the H-1B program are, because Indians, for example, which are predominantly the ones taking advantage of that program, they come here and they work for about 30% less than the Americans that are already here. So that is a problem. It's an abuse of the system. And
let's send those white people back that hire them. Let's send people back to Scotland. And let's send some people back to
not people that have undergone ethnogenesis and adopted.
Back.
Not people who have undergone ethnogenesis and adopted American culture.
Send them back. We can figure it out.
All of this, send them back to where? They have no heritage there whatsoever.
To Denmark. They don't even speak the language. Get them out of here. They don't even speak the language.
You're going to send. So this is where it's a false equivalency. This
They're
is a
the
false
ones
equivalency.
ruining America.
This is a false equivalency. They have undergone ethnogenesis. They are American. Their loyalty is to America.
So the Google
only.
tech guys who are white, can we send the Jewish guys back? Even they get to stay. I don't get it, man. The Jewish guys who look white, who actually support Israel, can't we send them back?
If they're not loyal to America, listen, it's a simple question that you can ask any one of these migrants. There's one question. It's very simple. It's not universal, but it generally works. If there was a war between our country and your home country, who would you side with? Most of these migrants, they literally say, especially the Muslim ones, they will side with their home country in a war. That means that they don't even consider themselves to be American. The same with a lot of the Jews. A lot of the Jews, literally, they will say that they have allegiance to Israel over the United States. So that's a problem. You do not have a right to be here. You do not have a right to be here if you.
The Russians say that in my Orthodox church.
And that's a problem, John. I agree.
Send them back.
That is a problem. If you believe that if you have a higher loyalty to the country in which you came from than the very country you're living in, and you're treating my home nation like an economic zone, that is a problem. And it's anti-Christian. It's anti-Christian.
Last question. Do you think America can become, like, for me, the highest form of identity is when I bump into someone who's Orthodox and on a subway in New York City. Yeah. It's like brotherhood. They can be blue. I don't care what color they're. They can look like a guy from Star Wars. It doesn't matter. Do you think America can become an Orthodox Christian place? Then we'd all have to love our brother anyway, and then I don't know what happens after that.
But I would push back on a little bit, because they at least have to be able to. They have to speak your language, right? Which is an aspect of your ethnicity as American. So
but they don't have to have your gene pool.
There is an aspect.
White gene pool.
Again, there are there's layers to this. So it's not just about ethnicity. It's not just about your gene pool. It is also about other things like culture, like language, which is why I have some things in common with Brits, but there's a lot of things I don't have in common with Brits, like dialect. There's a lot of aspects of culture that I don't have in common with Brits.
But I have a lot of genetic inclinations.
But I have a lot of genetic things in common with Brits. So the point is that there's different layers to this. It's not like it all flows together. It all flows together. That's the point. So to your question. So can America be? Did you ask? Can America be Orthodox?
Yeah.
What did you ask?
You think it's a thing?
Yeah. So here's why. I talked about this with Jim Jatras on Meet the Blessed. I believe that America can be Orthodox because right now you have two things happening in the West, particularly in America, but it's also happening in the UK. It's also happening throughout Western Europe. People are waking up to foreign influence. They're waking up to replacement of their people in their homeland. Those things are happening, right? A lot of people waking. We just saw this in Britain with Restore Britain just won all 10 of their elections. Yeah. So people are waking up to this, which we would consider this to be like nationalism. People are starting to become more nationalist in the West. Simultaneously, people are becoming more religious, particularly their religiosity is more frequent. So if you look at the studies that talk about this, and UOJ has done a lot of good work on this, the Gen Z population, although they are about the same amount of them are religious as prior generations, their frequency of church attendance is significantly higher than previous generations. That's what makes Gen Z unique. Mm-hmm. So basically you have two things happening here. You have religiosity rising, and you have political awareness and nationalism rising. And I don't believe that any paradigm really satisfies both of these the way that Orthodoxy does. I think that Roman Catholicism and Protestantism are completely hijacked on the political front because a lot of their NGOs are actually the ones that are contributing to mass migration. They're obviously we have the whole thing of dispensationalism, with and Zionism and Protestantism, and then obviously the Vatican too. Every time when a new pope gets into office, one of the first things they do, this has been the case for the last several popes, is release a document about their improving relations with Jews. I mean, Francis, on the anniversary of Nostra Aetate, he literally released a document. It's called "The Gifts of God are irrevocable," and in the document he says the Catholic Church does not endorse any mission efforts targeting Jews. So the Vatican has been infiltrated on the political front.
So they don't endorse the apostles when they all became not Jewish.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So the the Roman Catholic and Protestant churches are infiltrated on the political front. So even though they maybe satisfy this religious aspect, they aren't satisfying this political aspect. The Orthodox Church uniquely addresses both of these, and obviously the former is way more important than the latter. And a lot of people, when I talk about this, they erroneously think I'm saying that these are on the same level playing field. They're not at all. Mm-hmm. Everything must be grounded in your spiritual life. This is very clear. This is very clear the teaching of the Orthodox Church, and is what I advocate for constantly on my show. Everything must be grounded in the spiritual life. Orthodoxy satisfies that desire for the spiritual life that people are waking up to. But also, we are not infiltrated the way that the Roman Catholic and Protestant churches are on these things like Zionism and mass migration. And really Zionism, we're very strong in our anti-Zionism. I mean, this is a sentiment that is all throughout the Orthodox Church, whether it be, prior saints or current leadership that's alive today.
And you're saying anti-Zionism, not anti-people who carry a Jewish gene, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, 100%. And actually, it's really interesting because a lot of my dear brothers and sisters who are Jewish ethnically and have become Christian, it's actually interesting because they are ostracized. When you convert to Christianity as a Jew, you can convert to anything else. You can convert to Hinduism or New Age stuff, and you're still considered a Jew. But if you're a Jew and you convert to Christianity, you are completely ostracized from their tribe, if you will. So yeah, nobody's saying that there's some sort of like ethnic determinism with Jews. There are many dear brothers and sisters who are Christian and are, ethnically have Jewish heritage. That's awesome that they're, converting. Obviously, glory to God for that. But yeah, no, when we're talking about the sentiment in the Orthodox Church, we're talking about particularly not just Zionism, but infiltration, because there's also a lot of left-wing Jewish presence that the St. Nikolai talks about. So it's kind of both ends. Zionism is the right-wing example, and then, things like George Soros's left-wing, open borders stuff, that's all the left-wing examples. All this to say, I believe only Orthodoxy has the answers to both of these. And also, and this is where it gets into what I'm really passionate about on my show, because I really care about the young men that are actually taking this too far. Because there's an entire population of young men that have not been given a framework for this. Basically, they woke up to these issues, they're seeing their people replaced, and they just like straight up like are like, Hitler was right about everything and I'm a Nazi now, and it's like, okay, pump the brakes. I'm trying to like help them pump the brakes. Let's bring this in a little bit. Because actually there's a framework for your concerns within the church that we can submit ourselves to, and we don't need to abandon Christ. And so I'm trying to help these guys. What's like that? Yeah, so I'm trying to.
It's Georgian for, to your words, victory. Yeah, to your victory. Like it's an affirmation that we don't have to abandon Christ. That's your Ala Verde. Meaning that's the thing that you're saying here toward the end that kind of sums it all together. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's the demographic of young men that I really care about, that I really desire to help bring into the fold, help them submit themselves to the teachings of the church. So that's why I care about, people think I'm weaponizing the saints. Look, Saint Dumitru Stanilu wrote an entire book on race and nationalism. Like, this is not an issue that he mentioned in passing. This was a very important issue to him. So I'm not cherry picking the saints. I'm not saying you're saying this, but yeah, I am simply trying to help myself and the young men that follow me be grounded in the saints. That's what I'm trying to do, because we care about these issues and we want to make sure we're grounded in the saints.
I agree. I sense you don't have a dark heart, man. Look, it's just fact. You're not out to hurt people. You're trying to recover identity. I don't get it. I get it totally. I would just say, I don't think you're doing this. You're close though. The push within the Synaxarion, within the writings of the saints, is not toward a whiteness. They don't talk like that, bro. And I know they don't talk like that. I know you know that. I know it. That's not a vocabulary word. They don't circle around that concept. They circle around the concept of a common faith, a common race of Christianity. I totally agree with that. That's definitely in the lives of the saints, in the words of the saints. But whiteness as a goal is not a thing. This is not a thing, and I would fight you on that to the end. But can I tell you a story, and then we can hang up, or you can comment, and we can go. It's been a joy. It's been a joy. Uh-huh.
Yes.
A certain spiritual father in this country, in my life, I was trying to figure out, this was a couple years ago, COVID, like all hell's breaking loose. I am not one to get a bunker and then put a bunch of cans in there, maybe some guns. But I was invited by some friends, let's call them New Orthodox, to get a bunker. Like in a foreign state and get a bunker and like put some money in and go in on a bunker. Like, and I'm not, people have this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, should I go in on a bunker? And I asked my spiritual father, and he's like, don't worry, you can do this. Don't worry. Then problems come, they're coming.
Yeah.
And you go into your bunker, and then you will lock the doors, and then people will come and knock. Then you will open the doors, and you will give them all your food. So give them all your food today. Make life easier on yourself. This is my point, is you can't create bunkers, man. They don't work. They're not Christian consistent. And I'm not saying you're doing that, but they're not consistent with Christos. They don't go well together. Now, I'm not saying you're doing that. You can try. There's certain identities we should embrace. I'm just saying I kind of am over there with my spiritual father. And I don't know that it all applies what I just said, but there's something to what I'm to that concept. So will you tell us what we should do? What should we do to find you? And like, we'll put links. See, I'm not afraid to share. This is one thing I hate about online. I don't associate with him. Shut up. This is so dumb. I'll interview anybody. So how can we tell us about, you got anything coming out that we should look for?
Yeah. So I'm Real Ben Michael on all platforms, primarily active on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I do my live show, American Orthodoxy, 3 times a week, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 2:00 Eastern on YouTube. And I would encourage people, particularly the first 4 episodes is when I really lay out my position in full. I really don't like being lied about. I get called a white supremacist. I don't believe in any sort of racial hierarchy whatsoever. I reject that fundamentally, and I call it out all the time. So I don't like being lied about. So if you care about, look, and I appreciate this conversation because, obviously you disagree, but you're willing to have a conversation with me, and I don't think you're strawmanning me. I think you're trying to understand my position and understand where I'm coming from. Because, like you said, and I think this will be a good way to end this. I think, like you said about previous injustices against other ethnicities, I think we're seeing that right now against ethnicities that would colloquially be called white. And so I think that's problematic. I think that if it was happening to any other ethnicity that was non-white, I think the church would be openly condemning it. And so I see a little bit of a double standard. And so I'm talking about it. And it's fine if I get called hateful and racist and all these things, because I'm none of those things. And so, yeah, I mean, that's where I care about it. I care about my people's heritage. It doesn't mean I hate other people's heritage. I want everybody to celebrate their heritage. I use Nigeria as an example a lot because I have a dear brother who is Orthodox and is Nigerian. Mm-hmm. And he actually is a big supporter of me in my work. He doesn't agree on all of it, but he's a big supporter because he recognizes where I'm coming from. And I encourage him. He just made a video a couple weeks ago about the title.
They came at you for that, even though you just said normal stuff.
The title was black people should become Orthodox or something. And he's like I said, he's a Nigerian gentleman, and the whole video was just about people that would be considered black colloquially, adopting Orthodoxy in their culture and things of that nature, and converting, having their culture baptized. And I commented, I said, because there were some people that were giving him some heat. And I said, this is a dear brother. And, I think it's good that he's wanting his people to become Orthodox. I'm doing the same thing with my people. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a good thing. And so that's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. And I have people, I have Indians on my DMs all the time, saying they're with me, supporting me. I have people of all kinds of, ethnic heritages that are supporting what I do. So they know I'm not hateful. Anyone that watches my show knows I'm not hateful. It's just these people that lie about me. So yeah, that's what I would say. I believe it's an injustice. I care about my people's heritage. Ultimately, I care about Christ, and I want people to come to Christ. And that includes far-right young men. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
That's beautiful, man. Thank you for coming on here.
Yeah.
So we'll keep seeing each other. And then if I can get up there more often, I was out of town for the last 2.5 weeks. So yeah, I'll, can't wait. We'll have, it's cool. We'll have the off-camera, we're pals. We'll have the off-camera conversation next. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, greet your family. Guys, that's Ben Michael. Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks.
Well, heavy things lightly. That was such a thing. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed speaking with Ben. We'll see each other at church. Maybe you'll see people at church that you also wonder about. Is that guy a racist? Is that guy trying to pollute Orthodoxy by bringing in heretical ideas in the form of brown people? I clearly have some predispositions on this. I've been talking to many people about this because I cannot understand the divisions for me, as we spoke about there, so clearly not rooted in genus, but I think a division should be preferably rooted in theos. if there's one at all. And that one, when rooted in theos, for instance, I just think I have a different God than you. What does your God say to do? And then, I don't know, the white Thor God says, crush his head with a brick. And some white Thor God people will be like, no, that's not what Thor says. I'd be like, it's kind of close. And then they would say, what is your Jesus? What is your brown Palestinian mixed up all colors Jesus say to do to people who don't believe in the same God? I'm supposed to love you. Like, oh, you're an enemy, but I love you. And people go, it's not exactly like that. Mostly, it is like that. Oh, here's another thing. By the way, I lost my voice at Symbolic World. Here's another thing. But what if they come to your house and try to kill you with their Thor God? You should kill them so they don't kill your little children. That's called self-defense. That's perfectly fine. But then you have to repent, because you shouldn't kill humans. Even the bad ones, the mean ones, the ones that forgot about their divinity. So I just think the emphasis is in the wrong place. I'm going back to what I said. I like tall people. I think tall people should all band together because of their genetics. They have a similar experience in life. I would hate if tall people started a tall people island. Seems like not necessary. What about a language people island? What about an all English people island? English speaking people island? What about an island just for the Orthodox? Yeah, I think we have one of those called Mount Athos. And you can still visit them if you're not Orthodox. And they feed you. So you can go to the island, or the peninsula in this case, and they'll feed you. And you can even believe in Allah. You can go. You can believe in Thor the brick god, the rockhead god, and still go. What if you try to take it? Oh, that happened too. What if you try to take it over? Then the monks will pray, and most of them will get killed, and some of them will throw a spear at you or whatever they got. I don't think they're going to have a lot of weapons, though. When you go to try to take over their island, their Orthodox island, most of them will just sort of do communion and then hope you don't chop off their heads, or hope you do, actually. Because that's how they fight. They fight by being beautiful in the face of ugliness. Or a sword. Some of them fight with swords to protect their sweet, innocent little buddies, their other monk buddies. I don't know. It's all kind of interesting. That's it for me. Consider being a field worker where you go into the field with a lot of outsiders. Well, you're the outsider. That's what's ironic. You go into the field and live with a lot of outsiders as an outsider. Figure that out. Become a field worker, or become a field worker here at home by being a tamada. We do that. We're training them up, trying to figure it out, sending them into the worldwide field of people who don't commune together and throwing supras. Come to the Art of Tamada. We're throwing a concert with shovels and rope. Shovels and rope. If you heard of them, you know. Carrie Menolakos is coming to sing. Yeah, Tony Award nominated for Mamma Mia, that Carrie Menolakos. And she's got a new album out. Darby Wilcox. I think of her as the queen of the upstate. She is a Southern belle singer, and she's great. That's August 29th. Who loves you? We love you. First thing's trying to unite people by being proper guests and proper hosts. Gal Martos.